Good evening. You are at a meeting of the Economic Development Committee for the City of Wausau. It is October 7th at 5:30 p.m. and with a quorum present, I will call the meeting to order. So before we move further on the agenda, I'm going to move this over to Randy Feifrick to introduce new staff.
Thank you, Chair. I want to introduce our new Economic Development Manager, Patrick Gatterman. Patrick, if you want to just come up quick, introduce yourself briefly, just a little bit of your background.
Yeah, that'd be great. Randy promised me 15 minutes. Now I'm wondering what the heck. Patrick Gatterman. I'm the new Economic Development Manager for the City of Wausau. I was previously the director of the Small Business Development Center, which was a free one-on-one consulting service funded by the federal government. Did that for many years. I've owned a small business. I'm a big fanatic of the mom and pop shop, I call it. So background of definitely in the entrepreneur assistance, community development. I am a resident of Central Wisconsin, born and raised in Merrill. I call this home still, and I'm glad nobody booed when I said Merrill. But this is actually a dream job for me. I've known the staff here, great colleagues. So for me, I am happy to be here, and obviously we have great leadership, great colleagues. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Okay, so next we have public comment, and I just have an introduction to that. So thank you all for being here tonight. So before we open the floor for public comment, I just want to acknowledge that we've received several written comments in advance of this meeting, including a petition. These materials have been shared with all members of the committee, and any information that was not included in the original packet has been printed and distributed for review. Some of the public comments have referenced a zoning change and the 3M proposal from 2020. So I just want to clarify that the purpose of tonight is not to select from the previous proposals. Instead, our goal is to review the history of the property and the proposals that have been submitted in the past. Following that review, we as a committee will provide directions to the staff on how to move forward. So it's not, we will not be voting on any kind of zoning change, nothing like that. So with that context, we'll now begin the public comment portion of the meeting. As a reminder, when you come up for public comment, please state your name for the record and keep your comments to 3 minutes. We appreciate very much your input and your continued engagement in this process. So first up is Sid Elford. Is that correct? Did I pronounce it correctly?
Close enough.
Okay. You can correct me. Names are important.
Okay. It's Sid Elford, just as it's spelled. And I live 302 Buff Street in Wausau. And I've got a few comments to make. I have lived within the width of a street away from 1300 Cleveland Avenue for over 50 years. So I am kind of familiar with the neighborhood. We've had a history of a lot of broken promises, and this is some of them that I wanted to talk about. Connor got caught by undercover detectives from the DNR, and that has been officially documented, and we got from there. 3M has been caught with their contamination after many, many years. They've been here 95 years, and I have no proof, but I believe they've probably been contaminating all 95 years because they've been making the same product. Okay? One of the reasons I don't want this to become an industrial district is because of noise. Currently, we have noise after hours from Colby to Colby. We have noise after hours from 3M. 3M is running their little switch engines around. I understand our city has a curfew on train horns after 7 p.m. They go on into the middle of the night. Colby and Colby, when they first said they wanted to come out of that gate, they said, oh, we're only going to go from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. They awake me every morning at 3:15, and then about every 40 minutes after that. And then their over-the-road trucks are in and out of there all night long. It's noise. What I'm talking about is we want to eliminate or at least cut back on some of that noise. We have the work that the Public Works Department is doing over there now with their wood and et cetera. Is just unexcusable, the amount of noise that they make in the middle of a neighborhood of residential. Having been subjected to it for many years, and the Public Works says, oh, we don't make any noise. Well, baloney. And then they want to put a maintenance facility there, and they have all diesel trucks, and those things run more than 8 to 5. As you've noticed throughout the city, we have city people working. Well, they have to come out of that garage, into that garage, get fuel, repairs, whatever. This is just has got to go on in some way that we can do residential. Through many years, we've been saying we're going to clean it up. Well, we haven't done anything yet. We just keep going, well, we want some more tests. Now the state wants us to decide what we're going to do with it before we clean it up. We need to clean it up to the highest standard, no matter what we're going to use it for. To just pave over it and put blacktop over it or buildings over it does nothing but hides the stuff. It doesn't get rid of it. It just buries it. And it comes up and it's going downhill towards the river. The nearest testing well is within 100 feet of my house. They don't put the testing well there to find nice, clean water. Let me tell you, it ain't. I've seen the maps of where the stuff is going, and I expect it to be pretty close, if not intruding on my own personal property. I don't see any foreseeable action that the city is taking. All I see is it getting put off and put off and put off. And I've been there enough years that I've seen this go on for a long time. I don't think there's any excuse for keep putting it off. We find money for all of these people that want to build buildings. We spent $900,000 on MBX. Where did that money come from? We need to spend money on things that need to be done. These trying to fund some interpreters, I'm sorry, it's the wrong word, someone's dream that he's going to have a big building or a big business or a big apartment house. It's at city expense, but yet the things for our neighborhood, the city has not been able to come up with. So I'm going to quit at that.
Thank you.
But I hope you understand my feelings as this is an intrusion on our neighborhood, and it's not welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next up is Tom Killian.
Tom Killian, 133 East Thomas Street. Thank you for taking public comment. I just wanted to say that the agenda caused some confusion because those past proposals do indeed include 3M Company industrial expansion across the street from where they are onto the residentially zoned property. Colby and Colby's proposal was also a mix that would put new industrial operations on the residentially zoned property. And for years, as you can see in your petition, when you go back and look at comments, or even please review old video of meetings, there's been widespread opposition to any future industrial expansion or development on this large residential property. And just like tonight with public comment, I think the people want to believe and have hope and confidence in their government here, that they can trust their government, that when their government says it's going to do something and it gives its word, it does it. We thought this was over in the neighborhood years ago. It should have been over. This is inappropriate and dishonorable for some in government to keep thrusting things down the neighborhood and community's throat. People want to be able to trust their government, give them a reason. And tonight, that can be done. Let's hear it from our government that it says it believes in these principles to take the anxiety and pain off these people. The government needs to take its boot off the throat of our neighborhood and other working and middle-class neighborhoods. It has had its boot on for decades, and it can do that by saying industrial development in the future for 1300 Cleveland Avenue is dead. It's dead as a doornail. And if it won't have the integrity and clarity to say that, then I would channel an old cereal line, silly rabbit, tricks are for kids. Because what we will see from some, because it is the playbook of City Hall, some will try to rezone this property to site an industrial fleet facility, and then there is the distinct possibility that following that rezone, 20 to 30% of it, the door is opened for 3M Company or another notorious polluter. And that may not be the plan on paper, but gosh darn it, if that's how people feel, I understand why. So put an end to the poor governance, listen to the people you serve, and let's have a positive public participation process moving forward like other neighborhoods. This can be positive and honorable. That's in the government's hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Killian. Next up is Mary Tao.
Mary Tao, 506 Sherburne Street. I didn't think I would be coming back to the chamber council, the council chambers here to give public comment. I didn't think I would ever have to see this building ever again. But I felt compelled to be here because the people behind me were some of the constituents when I was serving. They continue to call me and show up to neighborhood meetings. And I'm here to address a couple of points with all of you tonight. So thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Mayor, council members, and staff, as you unpack the history, because there's a lot of history at this 1300 Cleveland property. I think the best thing in 2018 that myself and other council peers, what we did was rezoned that property, from industrial to residential. So I commend some of you. And for those of you who did not have that privilege, but you now have the privilege to listen to your constituents and your community on what you will do next with that property. I do support remediation efforts. I know that you all have a remedial plan that you will be submitting to the DNR on what that cleanup efforts will look like. I hope you uphold that cleanup standard, to the highest, rigorous requirements possible, because I think that whatever you develop there, whether it's residential or commercial, I hope it's not industrial use, but I hope that you respect the cleanup efforts in that area. I also want to share that, I live in the neighboring district. I'm in District 10. even though this property's on District 3. But I'm less than a mile away from the property. And when I think about the nice things that have happened in our community, especially in District 3 and District 10 in that area, not a lot of great things have happened in that community. Meaning, we want green space, we want great walking trails. We get teased with, little crumbs, little nuggets that the council members and the city provides us, but not as many benefits that I see in other communities. We want to share that same quality of life. I can tell you that the people in District 3 and 10, we're working class citizens. We work hard. We're just as compassionate about sharing that same thriving life like everybody else. But we often get overlooked. We often get improvements in our streets, but you know what? We're kind of like thrown all over the place. They don't really care about, the aftermath of any kind of cleanup. I mean, you guys should come see Sherman Street. It's a disaster over there right now, but that's not why we're here today. But what I'm trying to share with you is that we're often overlooked, and I hope that you share a process where citizens can come together and be able to share ideas and next steps with all of you instead of just shutting them out from the process. So thank you for listening to me, and thank you for my 3 minutes.
Thank you. Next up is it Betty Stevens? I pronounced it correctly? Okay.
Oh, it really jumps out at you, doesn't it? That microphone, sort of like. I'm not used to being a public speaker, but thank you for allowing me to say a few words this evening regarding this property that's under consideration. It is really an ugly-looking spot right now that's been ignored, and I'm glad that it's going to be looked at again. I like that it's the zoning changed so that no more industrial growth will happen there, hopefully. It is really amazing how many cities have changed over the decades, many decades, with property near rivers. It used to be you had industrial property near rivers because they were transporting materials on the river, and that doesn't happen here. We've got kayaking, and some parts of the river are taken care of really well for bringing in many people for kayak races. Other parts of the river are well tended. I could talk about this and that, but so you can walk, you can bike. Some people even go on really fast motorized bicycles, but I don't like that. But anyway, it seems like we should look at our resources, like having a river go through the middle of the city, and give attention to all parts of it and not treat some parts as less important. The property itself, it seems like if it went back to industrial, it would be like a really, really disgraceful kind of insult to injury. The people that have lived there for a long time, I live in a neighboring area. I drive through that area, like many people do, to get over to other parts of town. I live, I didn't say, my name is Betty Stevens. I live at 612 Ethel Street. So I'm in the area and go through there. And, I grew up in a real small town, didn't have a lot of money up there. The only people that had money were the Link brothers. Minong, Wisconsin. One of my classmates now has all the beef jerky, Jack Link's beef jerky. But we had, way back then, a senior center where the people that didn't have enough money to go to pay membership at a Y could go and have lunch, and they could play bingo and see their neighbors. My mother found it a wonderful resource in her late years. We need places that are for the lower income, for seniors, for respite care, for elderly, for children, for daycare. I can see all kinds of positive things that could be added to the area, but that's not why you're here tonight. But I don't know why you'd want to use it for something that's dirty and noisy. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Bruce Keynes.
Bruce Keynes, 118 River Street. My property is adjacent to the current pollution that is along the Thomas Street corridor, ground zero, if you will. So I am vehemently opposed to any industrial use of the Cleveland Ave property and the contamination that is going to be caused by it. Thank you.
Oops, thank you. Next is Randy Radke.
My name is Randy Ratke, 244 Wyatt Street, Wausau, Wisconsin. The neighbors spoke up a few years ago, and the decision was made to rezone the property at 1300 Cleveland Ave residential. Now here we are again. I believe the neighborhood has made it loud and clear we don't want industrial on that site. Please listen and do the right thing and leave it residential. The neighborhood endured a lot of industrial pollution for many years, and I feel that property should be cleaned up and put something there the whole community can enjoy, like a community center. We created an industrial park for a reason, and I believe there's other properties that are better suited for the Public Works Department. Thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you. Next is Lori Gajewski. Yes. Did I pronounce it correct? Okay.
You did. Getting a little emotional listening to these people. Lori Gajewski, 1407 Cleveland Avenue, right across the street from 1300. I grew up there. My parents still own a home there. My mother's there. She's been there 68 years. I was one of the individuals that went around with the petition about this rezoning. And it was really an awesome experience for me because I got to listen to some of those people that live down in that area and how they feel about it. And they're hardworking people, as someone said. They come from all different walks of life. I'm retired military, retired nurse as a civilian. There's many healthcare workers, people that work at the industries that are surrounding them, pharmacists, young and old. I see young couples with their children walking on a daily basis, the elderly, retired, and then in the middle, you know, those hardworking individuals that still get up every day and need to go to work and provide for a family. They like their neighborhood, and they feel very disrespected. I'll give you some of the feedback. They feel disrespected as a neighborhood, and why? How long have we known about this contamination, and it's still contaminated? And I'm not an expert on this, but I can't imagine that that's not moving around into the neighborhood. It's never been tested across the street. I'm angry because when I said, okay, are we going to test any of the surrounding neighborhood? Well, no, nobody was planning on doing that with the city, but a homeowner could have it tested and they'd pay for it. But be careful with that, because if they do find contaminants on your land, you might receive a letter of responsibility. And then you'd be responsible for cleaning that up. Does that even make any sense? That an industry went in there pouring those chemicals, knowing it's toxic. We've known this for over 40 years when they came through, as Sid said, and were investigating, and we just let it sit there. And that company left probably unscathed. But now you're going to tell landowners right across the street, it wouldn't surprise me if you wouldn't find something over there, that they would be responsible. But the industry's gone. And now they're talking, and then we got the signatures, they're talking about possibly rezoning. And so all we wanted to make sure of is that doesn't happen. They also feel that the community looks down on them. They call us a disadvantaged neighborhood. They don't feel disadvantaged. Many of them the property owners take care of their property. Maybe some of the landlords, not as much. Maybe they do. They said, do you know what they call us down here? And I said, I know. I grew up in this neighborhood, the Hollow, sometimes the Hungry Hollow. They found that very disrespectful of our neighborhood. And I'll tell you and we're surrounded by when we do the big city drop-off and we bring down the yard waste, it's all great that we have those services, but they feel disrespected by the other communities too, because you know what they'll do? People will come down that road and park right in front of driveways. And that's not respectful of that neighborhood, is it? And people have to get up and go to work. Some of them would move their cars at night knowing that they'll do this. We even put up signs not to do it, and they still did it this year. So why do they feel that way? But the worst is that contamination. It's just appalling to me that we wouldn't clean that up, no matter what you're going to use it for. And you should clean it up to the best standard. Also, they would ask that in the future, if it's discussed, that you'd ask for some public input on what could help the neighborhood. I got a lot of good ideas while I was out there. I wasn't the right forum. So another thing is they don't believe the city. They don't believe that they stick by their word. And one of the reasons is of what just happened on Thomas Street.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. But
Am I done? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry.
The Thomas Street. So they're not very trusting of the government. So I thank you for my time. Thank you for timing me.
Thank you. Next is Joel Lewis.
Hi, everyone. Joel Lewis, 807 Turner Street, Wausau, Wisconsin. And first, I want to start by saying thank you for serving our city. I have a lot of respect for many of you up here and appreciate the work you do. And even when we disagree, I still respect you for taking the time to be a part of this. I'm excited to hear that the rezoning is not something that sounds is going to be on the table, so I appreciate that. But yes, I do, I've been involved in this issue pretty much since the beginning. In terms of the contamination in that environment, and so that in that neighborhood, and so that's something I'm concerned about, as many people have said, and so I just want to ensure that anything that happens in that neighborhood is thinking about the residents and thinking about the environment. And I'd like to echo again the idea that the residents in the city often get stuck with the tab in these situations rather than the companies that are responsible. And with the forever chemicals and those kinds of things that we've been dealing with, I have trust issues with 3M, even though I know, it's a union shop, they have good wages, that kind of thing. But it concerns me when you look at the history of contamination with this company. And so I just would like to say that if that is a proposal that's still a possibility, please don't consider that or any other industrial proposals that could contaminate the neighborhood or make people or the environment sick. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Last on the list is Vicki Harness.
Hi, I'm Vicki Harness. I live at 1240 South 9th Avenue. I'm uphill from that property, so I'm not concerned about the contamination running into my yard, but I do feel concerned for the people in the neighborhood between the property and the river and surrounding. This gal that lives across the street, I can't even imagine having to look at that property all the time. When I first moved into the neighborhood in 1993, that was where the yard waste site was, at that property, and so we used to take our yard waste site to that spot, or our yard waste to that spot. I know that in the 32 years that I've lived in the neighborhood, there has been constant conversations about cleaning that property up, and we were happy when they rezoned it to residential so that it could be cleaned up to the highest standards possible. And we would hope that with assistance from the DNR that the city'd be able to do that so that we could have a clean site and a clean area to do other projects with. I like the senior idea, and
I'm so sorry.
that's
It
okay.
was an alarm.
I was
And my
making
phone-
sure mine was turned off too.
Oh, my goodness.
Because of course, although it never rings, it always does.
My
when it's
ringer
not
was,
supposed
it
to.
was an alarm, so I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Anyway, so I just hope that you will continue the process of getting the property cleaned up. We have, the city has built an industrial park for a reason, and that's where industrial businesses should lie, not in the center of a huge neighborhood with young families and retired people. And so I hope that you will continue the process of cleaning the property up and taking care of the neighborhood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And again, I apologize for that. Before we move on, is there anyone else who did want to make public comment that didn't make it onto the list here? Okay, so we have a few of you. So if you wanted to come up first, and then
My
just.
name is Therese Miller,
could
and
you-
I've lived in
could-
Wausau like over
could-
50 years.
I'm
raised all
sorry,
my-
could you just say it into the
Oh,
microphone?
Therese Miller,
Thank
and
you.
I've lived in Wausau over 50 years, raised all my kids here. And now I have two kids that live not too far from 3M. They bought houses and are living there. So my concern is I don't want 3M to get any bigger. I mean, I also have a brother that lived in River Drive. His wife died of cancer not too long, and I have a brother that lived on 11th Avenue, South 10th through 11th, and he died of cancer too. So that I want no more the rezoning. I want no more industrial in town. We don't need that in town. It just scares me. And my kids living there, my grandkids living there, I think they still let stuff out in the air too. I think sometimes you can just tell when it's the smell of the air, when 3M is letting off something at whatever time of night they do it. So somebody should be checking them closer. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much. Next, who would ever like to come up next?
William Gow, 206 South 4th Avenue, Wausau, Wisconsin. My concern is just 3M's expanding as well. The fact that my children live in that with my ex, and grad school is right down there. So I just would hope that we would encourage that. The fact that even at other facilities, they have had over about 12 violations in the last 25 years. So that's a violation every 2 years. So I would hope that we would encourage them to be more productive and safe. And the fact with their track record, I think it should be prohibited that they would continue expanding. Like other people said, we have a business park. We should encourage them to move the business park. Their trains are always stopping traffic. Kids going to school, very dangerous. And I also want to mention that you're doing a put. Barry Liss is a fine man. He worked at the UWMC. You've seen his track record. He was one of my professors, had a huge impact on my life. So I think he'd be a great person for that position. So thank you for hearing me today.
Thank you. Next, yep, come on up.
Do you have a ladder? My name is Jerry Sheff. I'm a retired physician. And PFAS, polyfluoroalkyl substances, are actually a global issue. Everybody has it in their body. It's in the groundwater. It's everywhere. You can't get rid of it for decades. It's there to stay for a long, long time in all of us. It's known to be a carcinogen, and it is responsible for many cancers, among them testicular, prostate, kidney, bladder, and even non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So, I mean, if you want to address this problem, it should be addressed as a global issue. And I was reading that 3M wants to get PFAS out of their industrial production process through the end of 2025. That's not good enough. They've dumped it into their water system for decades. They're involved in multiple lawsuits. The problem is they have billions of dollars that can buy them out of these lawsuits while they lie. And that's always a problem with big industries and mega money makers. They can pay their way out of anything, practically. So it sometimes might seem like an uphill battle, but I think if people do continue to battle this and speak out against it, it would work. And the government's doing so many egregious actions right now, it's beyond comprehension. But in imagination, what's really happening, having just reread 1984. I think that what's happening in this world really with all these contaminants in the water, they all need to be stopped. When somebody says Tylenol, acetaminophen is causing autism, number one, they should have their head examined. Look at all the toxins we're exposed to. We have tons of plastics around, and a lot of it's in our systems. We all have it. You know, we're all contaminated by many, many things in our environment that we won't get rid of in our lifetimes. I don't care how old you are, or how young you are, or how long you live. Some people may be more immune to some of the effects of things and more genetically predisposed to living longer than some people, but not everybody that's lucky or unlucky sometimes. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Last chance. Okay.
Could I make one more comment?
Yes.
This is going to, no matter what, this is going to be expensive to clean it up.
Oh, yeah.
And
Could you-
PFAS is,
I'm sorry, could you just give your name one more time?
oh,
too?
Sid L. Ford,
Thank you.
302 Buff Street, Wausau. Lost my train of thought for a second. Anyway, this is going to be expensive, but there are so many more chemicals in that 1300 Cleveland Avenue than PFAS. Many, many more chemicals. I don't need to explain to you what they are. There's a lot of them, and you can look at all the DNR books if you want to. But my one comment is, Connors made that mess. When the city acquired that piece of property, they got a clause in that contract that if there was any contamination to be cleaned up, Connors would take responsibility for it. I have seen nothing from the city about attacking them, suing them, or just plain pursuing it. And I'll leave it at that because I don't know the exact numbers, but we're talking probably $2 to $5 million here.
Thank you. Okay, if we have heard from everyone that wanted to give public comment, then we will move on to agenda item number 2, approval of minutes from the September 2nd, 2025 meeting.
Motion to approve as recorded.
Okay, so motion to approve by Alder Neal, second by Alder Killian. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that passes. Then we'll move on to agenda item number 3, discussion and possible action on North 2nd Street request for information.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So your last meeting of the Economic Development Committee reviewed the North 2nd Street RFI proposals that came in. We had that one proposal from Gizo Uramelli. After careful consideration, he informed me on September 8th he didn't want to move forward with that project. So that leaves us with no development proposals to consider. My intent of putting this on the agenda today was looking for direction from the committee and how to move forward. 2 possible avenues that I'm looking at are, first, just simply reissuing the RFP, spending probably a longer time period in looking to attract developers to it with a definitive end date. The other option is posting the RFI on our website and taking development proposals as they come in, more of an open-ended approach to it. So I'll leave that up for your discussion, look for your direction on that, or if there's any other ideas that you have.
Committee members, Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I saw the 2 options, it was my gut feeling that the best thing for the people in that location and for the businesses would be to have a deadline so they had some idea of what was going to happen to the neighborhood. I didn't want to make a recommendation based just on my feeling. So I spoke with a business owner in that area, and these were her thoughts. Having some sort of deadline would be ideal, along with the timeline for construction and so forth, so that we as business owners know if we want to stay in the location or or move our office. Additionally, she noticed that the city has put up signs from North 2nd Street to Bridge Street indicating no left turn. If they close North 2nd Street, she said, where Gizo had proposed, and they can't turn left, the only option is go right over Bridge Street from the intersection, and that is absolutely not a good plan. So based on my initial feeling and the feedback from the resident and the business owner, I would be supporting option 1, Randy. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Killian. Any other comments, questions from the committee members? Alder Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I disagree a little bit because I think it's not really a hot commodity property, perhaps, although it's got a lot of potential, I suppose, in terms of its traffic location. So I kind of favor the open-ended, just leave it out there. And I think that, since it is a high-traffic area, it would really behoove us to put up a large sign on the property saying, available for development, contact so-and-so at such and such, so that we've got that to anybody that's cruising by and goes, oh, well, maybe I want to put my office there, or I want to put something else there. So I think that kind of thing, it's a step further than just like posting it on the website or something. So, so I would, prefer the open-ended scenario. Thanks.
Thanks, Alder Neal. Other members, any thoughts? Alder Henke?
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I could go either way on this one. Hearing from the business is definitely helpful in the area. I guess, are we looking for a motion and a vote on this?
I think that would be appropriate so that we have a record of the action.
Okay. I guess I'll make the motion to go with option number 1 then and put it back out for another RFP and take it from there.
So that would be an RFP then for a limited amount of time.
With a deadline. Do you want the deadline date? I trust you with
We'll
with
take
your
it from
judgments.
that. We'll take your policy and move it forward.
Alder Tierney? Okay, so a motion by Alder Henke to go with option number 1 with the second by Alder Tierney. Any other? Alder Henke?
Thank you. I still like the idea of the sign out there. I mean, even if it's just for a shorter time. But so I don't want to add that to my motion, but just maybe direction to staff. Thank you.
Does that need to be put in the motion?
I was just going to treat it as direction to staff.
Other comments, questions?
Just to make it clear, if we vote, we're voting for option 1, correct?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the motion is to go with option 1, and that's to put a sign again, or to put another RFP. That's right.
Put
with a
another
limited-
RFI out with a definitive deadline.
Okay, so.
Excuse me, and
sure.
what would that deadline be?
I'll have to think through it and just kind of align your meeting dates back forward. I'm thinking at least 2-month period that we'd have it open for, just based on my experience last time with the calls coming in from developers. We might even look at 3 months, just depending on, I want to look and see holidays and things as well, so.
Right. My concern is that time period passes and we receive nothing. Well, what's the next step? You take it off the market, you take down the sign. I don't see that as a viable option. If there's no response in that time frame, leave it open. And then, another month goes by, another month goes by, somebody finally does something. So I don't really see the need for this artificial, end date, because we'll be right back here in 60 days going, well, should we extend it? So I don't get it myself. I'll vote against this and hope that we instead can go ahead and leave it open-ended.
So, Alder Killian, sorry.
Just a little bit of a response to Mr. Neal. Probably a good reason to have a deadline is that, as the business owner told me, they want to have some idea of what's going to happen there and not wait endlessly. I mean, if there wasn't a response by the time the deadline approached, at least they would know that nothing is going to happen at that point in time. And I know they would if there were open deadline. But just I know in my life, if I expect something's going to be happening, I have much less anxiety. And especially if it's a business, I want to know what's going to happen and when. So that would be her reasoning, I guess, for wanting to know. And that would be the way I would feel. Thank you.
So should we go ahead then with the vote? Okay, so with a motion and a second on the floor, all those in favor of option number 1, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so motion approved, 4 in favor, 1 opposed. Okay, next on the agenda, agenda item number 4, discussion and possible action on the property redevelopment policy, also known as property disposition policy.
Madam Chair, might I suggest that we skip down to the 1300 Cleveland Avenue items? I'm sure a lot of people are here specifically for those, and then we can address the others afterwards, if that's okay.
If it's consent to the committee, it's fine.
Oh, yes, do we need to vote or just, okay, are all other, okay, sounds good, good idea, thank you. So that would take us then to item number 6, correct?
Yes.
Okay, update on history and environmental cleanup of city-owned property at 1300 Cleveland Ave. Do you want me to, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as part of this meeting, I was asked to prepare some materials for 1300 Cleveland. Given the robust history, it was pretty extensive, and I know I've only scraped the edge of what we've worked on in the past, going back to the purchase of the property in the 1980s. So just to get us started, talk a little bit about the environmental cleanup efforts and history on that. Asked for Eric to come up, our Public Works Director. He provided information in the packet for you. It's been a ongoing effort, and kind of what brings us to this meeting today is we're kind of at a point where there needs to be some decision made in terms of future development. So I'll turn it over to Eric if you want to just provide a brief summary.
Yeah, I can. From really when we first started doing the investigation of the site, with the DNR, started in 2020. We hired GEI consultants. They did our initial testing. There was contamination on the property, so we were issued a responsible party letter from the DNR, which initiated a site investigation. So we walked through those steps over several years, doing site investigations not only of soil, but also the groundwater underneath as well. And just recently, we had a notice that the site investigation was completed. And so now we are on to the step as a remedial actions options report, an RAOR. Based on the fact that this site does have a long history, and it also, we're really just getting into the thought of remediation efforts. So I have worked with the consultants to discuss the opportunity for them to come and provide a presentation to the City Council on November 11th with regards to a more detailed overview of what's been done over the last 4 to 5 years, and then also the next steps and some options that the City Council will have to take a look at and provide some direction on. So if anyone has any specific questions anyway, I'm happy to answer them. Hi, Terry.
Well, thank you for being here, Eric. I have heard very frequently you and others saying that because it's zoned residential, we're going to be cleaning it up to residential standards, right?
Yes, that's the direction we've been giving, so yes.
Okay, but I think it's important that the public know that that has various levels of cleaning. So, for example, whatever you put on there, you could say we'll blacktop over it, or we'll put grass and concrete or whatever, but that doesn't mean it's going to be cleaned up to the most rigorous standards. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's a difference between cleanup and and a difference to bringing a site to remediate it and bring it to closure, right? And so those options range from, like you said, just capping the site and leaving the contamination there, and just keeping people not in contact with it, to full excavation, full removal of all material, so they range from one to the other, right? The DNR's expectation will be that we bring the site to closure. And so one of the things when you're talking about industrial and non-industrial standards is the limits for non-industrial standards are lower, right? So anything that we run into, if we look at industrial standards, there may only be parts of the site that we would have to deal with, right? Non-industrial standards, we're going to have to approach it as a larger footprint of the site that will have to be remediated. Yes.
And I also think that regarding the remedial action plan, the DNR has communicated with me about a green team.
Yep.
And I believe they communicated that with you as well.
Yep.
And I believe what that is it's a team of people from the city and a team of people from the DNR meeting to discuss the possibilities of putting forth a positive change to that location and to talk about all of the things that have been done and the potential funding. And I was told by Jane Gray at the DNR that there's a huge amount of funding available, but the city has to indicate that they want to be an active part of this green team and let the DNR know. So as far as cleanup and remediation and the plan moving forward, does it feel to you as the DPW director that that green team would be an important aspect?
Yeah, I think that's going to be an initial key conversation once the council's informed of everything that's happened, some potential options moving forward, then I think that, working with Jane, putting a green team together, kind of similar to what we did with the old mall site. We worked with the green team at the DNR for that as well. And I think if there is funding, whether it's state or federal, I think once there's a direction from the city council on how the use of that property is going to go, we're going to have a much better opportunity for those grants moving forward on that for that remediation. So I'm hoping as those conversations begin and the council gets a chance to ask some additional questions, we begin those conversations. I think a final plan for remedial action report, I think will come together. It's going to take some time.
Thank you,
Yep.
Eric. And I did speak with the city attorney before the meeting and asked if there would be a time during this committee meeting where I could make some personal remarks, because I didn't know if that was appropriate from an alder or not having been on council for many, many years. But she did say that the committee like this is a more informal committee, not as formal as council. And I would just have to ask the chair if she would allow me to speak and make some personal comments.
Yep. And I will, that's okay with everyone else on the committee? Yep. Okay.
All right.
You're on.
I'm on, and this is a personal comment, not a factual or objective data kind of comment. I am a resident of Thomas Street, 133 East Thomas Street. I have been in that area for a very long time. I am fully aware of the difficult health problems that people have experienced in that neighborhood. I am fully aware, and I was fortunate because my son was an alder prior to my coming on council. He researches, and I have learned a lot from that research. I am fully aware of the types of contamination on 1300 Cleveland Avenue. I know that it was tested up to a certain fence, and then because the city, I don't know if they chose not to or couldn't test any further, there were high levels of contamination at that fence, and I don't know what the level of contamination is at the hill going down into the person's garden down there. But I know that I have tremendous concern for the people in that district. And when I hear these people come and talk about their concerns and their fear of more industrial development on that property, it will not only impact their quality of life, but it will possibly impact their health additionally. And I want to say, as a resident of that neighborhood who doesn't live next door to Cleveland Avenue, but who lives a couple blocks away, I am equally concerned. And I hope that our council and our committees will make decisions for these people that we can be proud of. It's about time we do that. And Chair Lukens, thank you for allowing me to speak, and other committee members, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Alder Killian. Other comments, questions? Mayor Denny?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Doesn't take too much courage to sit up here and repeat some of what I've heard, but I knocked on doors in that neighborhood, and I've attended neighborhood meetings, spent some time with Mr. Elford in his house, knocking on doors, heard some of the stories directly. And one of the things you mentioned is the MBX property, or that was mentioned, is we made a commitment to clean up along the river and get industrial off the river and turn it into residential or recreation, whatever quality of life things, because we don't work and live along the river like we used to, where we'd walk to work and work on the river. So I think a similar commitment was made in 2018 on this property, whether it was because of that same philosophy or not, but it was a unanimous decision to go toward a non-industrial use. So I think that's appropriate, and I would support that. And I do not support pushing for, an industrial use there. I mean, there's been several that have been listed. I think we can dispense with those and then move forward and see where that goes. And that's why it's here in economic development, because it was originally purchased as an economic development. In fact, it was an incubator for growing businesses at one time. So, let's, in the spirit of that original purchase, let's move toward that if we can. Thank you. And thank you for the residents who've shown up and voiced your opinions. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Denny. And I would second that to all of you who came and took your time to share your comments. We do appreciate it. Where to next, I guess?
Well, I think that kind of makes a wrap for our item 6 on the agenda. So do you want to move on to item 7?
Sure. So item number 7 is discussion and possible action on past development proposals and university project concepts, at city-owned 1300 Cleveland Ave property.
So if you're following along in my memo, there's some links that we put in there, and we did this. It was just very difficult to organize all the material otherwise. So these links link out to our city website to get you to some of the past proposals, minutes, different information, proposals from 2020 as part of that. In addition to that, I'll kind of hit some highlights here. So there was an RFP put out on the property in 2020. The city received, sorry, I'm getting lost in my own email here, 4 different proposals on that property. One was a proposal for 3M, which would entail a portion of the property being used for industrial. A second was for the Community Partners Campus, which ultimately was placed on Grand Avenue. There was an affordable housing project from Dana Capital and General Capital, and a Colby and Colby project, which was looking at housing and some manufacturing as part of that. Part of that process was looking at the environmental contamination. Ultimately, the committee and council did not move any of those projects forward. They were kind of put to the side for the time being, and focus was put on the environmental contamination and cleanup of that effort. So that brings us forward to, I believe it was 2023. The city in partnership with UW-Madison through one of their grad school classes, had what's called university. This is an opportunity for typically people that are in the grad school program to work with a municipality and get some real world experience in terms of working with city staff and then putting together student projects. There were 3 different projects that were put together for 1300 Cleveland. We listed out some of just the high level detail of those proposals in your packet. One was a 65 unit apartment complex. One had 28 2-bedroom duplexes. And what was the other one? Other one included 25 3-bedroom, 3-bath homes. So you just get an idea. There was a number of different residential concepts brought forward at that point. We looked at those. There was a lot of good things. Also keep in mind that the property is currently zoned as MRL 12. These proposals didn't necessarily stay within that density, but I think their effort was good in looking at the number of different ways that the property could be used for residential. But keep in mind, these are student projects. These aren't developer concepts. It's not something we can just take as is and move forward. There's a lot more public process that would have to go into it, but just gives you an idea of some of the possibilities of the site. So with that, happy to answer any of your questions as you discuss. Ultimately, as I think Chair Lucan started the conversation before public comment, the intent of this meeting is for you to provide us with direction on how you want to move forward. We've made the land use decision of rezoning the property to residential, but how do you want to see us move forward to finding what Eric ultimately really needs is what's going to happen with this property from a development perspective, because that will tie into what he's able to work with and secure for grant funding. So I'll leave it up to the committee for discussion. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer. I just want to say in trying to learn the background of this myself, more of the background, I did speak, one person that I spoke with was Matt Thompson from the DNR, because I knew he had a lot of background on it. And so he told me the same, that, I've heard a lot of people saying this needs to be cleaned up and this needs to be cleaned up. And it was my understanding, so I guess for clarification, that partly we've been waiting, they're waiting for a purpose from us, correct? Is that correct? And then, so that's part of the reason we haven't moved forward? Is that correct, Mr. Lindman?
The site investigation was just completed this summer, so now we're kind of on the next steps, which part of that is, in line with that, is moving forward with whatever the potential redevelopment or end use of the property will be. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, council members, Alder Tierney and then Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I had gone through the packet, and there was a lot of information from 2020, 2021, and even before that, and the city had rezoned it, the council, residential. And there have been a lot of broken promises in those neighborhoods down there. And it was rezoned residential. I can't for the life of me figure out why we would go back to industrial. I've gone down there. I have looked at the site. I went through the neighborhoods. And if somebody wanted to have a manufacturing site across the street from me or down the road from me, I too would be unhappy. I would be nervous, especially when there's contamination there. If you put this in a very affluent neighborhood, or even put the idea that this could be out there, there'd be hell to pay. So I don't think that the right thing to do here is go back to industrial. I think we need to clean this up and keep it residential, and that is my very strong opinion on this. Thank you.
And just to be clear, we're not proposing it to be rezoned as residential. Those were just proposals from 2020, just showing some of the past development history.
But yes, when I read this, the council had made it very clear what they wanted to do. So I saw the past proposals, I saw what had been promised, and I think that we need to stay on that point. I know we're not doing any rezoning here, but I still wanted to put my thoughts out there and my feelings on how I believe this council should act and this department should act. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Killian.
And as Randy said, they're not looking to rezone it, but it's been my understanding, and I've heard at several meetings, committee meetings, that there is a push to put the fleet facility there. And of course, that would require rezoning. And of course, this committee is not looking at rezoning it. That's not our purpose. But that push is being made. So I just did want to counter that, Randy. I hear it. I heard it at infrastructure. And I do believe there is a push to put the fleet facility there. But what I wanted to say is that the next step in this process, since that's what you're asking us for, is to be taking action to start determine public participation process for future non-industrial use of this property. And the input should come from the public, it should come from the staff, and from the council members. So I believe that that's the next process, the next step in the process that should be taken is to look for public input and from staff regarding non-industrial use of this property. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if that's a direction the committee would like us to go, we could take that direction and go back. We can work with our planning staff. I would look to them to kind of outline a process that we could bring back to the committee at your next meeting so that everybody's on the same page with how we move forward in terms of collecting that public comment input and finding various ways to do that.
Thank you. Yep, that's what I guess I'd love to hear from the other council members too, as to that. Alder Neal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I honestly believe that any question of the fleet facility going there or any non-residential or let's say, anything that isn't a soft commercial, application, it's not going to make it through this council. It doesn't have a snowball's chance. So, I mean, let's kind of like take that off the table in our thinking because it's not going to happen. There's not 11 people on this council, or there's not 6 of them. They're going to say, oh, no, let's revert back. No, it's always going to be, let's, do what we said we were going to do, and that is clean up the property to make it developable, and then look at the potentials for the development that'll work for the neighborhood. So that's the way we're going to be going, I know, as a council. So I'd kind of like to alleviate anybody's fears and concerns because it's just not going to happen. So thank you.
Thank you, Alder Neal. Alder Hinkie, do you want to speak?
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah. I just echo what Alder Neal said. I mean, it was brought up by an alder during an INF meeting when we were just doing an update on the fleet facility. I mean, we didn't even have it agendized, so we had it agendized as an update, and it was, and Alder took it upon themselves to bring this up. I agree. I don't see us having 7 or 8 votes to override a veto to get this anything other than residential. I guess I'm full support of it staying residential and cleaned up that way. I would to alleviate any headaches at the next meeting, I guess I would encourage any of us with ideas of how they would like to see this public input start, or have any ideas on how that would go, or anyone who came up and spoke or is here tonight, reach out to our Economic Development Committee and please get to them before we get this agendized next month. And then when it comes to us, it's something that both the community and us, all of us alders, already kind of feel good about, So I guess that would be my ask, just as a voting member on this committee. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Hinkie. Did you want to say something? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Alder Killian.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to thank Alder Neal and Alder Henke and Alder Tierney for expressing their opinions about what's important for the residents of that area. And I have to tell you, this is such a serious issue for these people. You say don't be concerned about it because it's not going to happen, but when you live in that area, it is a concern and it is a fear because so many things have been promised and so many things haven't been followed up on. And I think you can tell that this is an emotional thing for me as well. And I'm so happy to hear that kind of support for the residents in my district and those who spoke in District 10. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Killian. So I would like to speak to this myself. So I agree with everything that's been said here. I don't think there would be the votes either on this council. I feel strongly about environmental justice, about environmental issues. Anyone I think on this council knows that about me. And I lived for a long time. I don't know, probably 20 years. I lived on 9th Ave, I lived on 10th Ave, and I lived on 11th Ave in two different places. So I know it wasn't right there, but I used to walk the neighborhood all the time. I mean, I have 2 daughters. I used to, look at the industry and I had concerns about that and been concerned about environmental issues for a long, long time. So, looking at some of the projects by the university students, they also had child care facility or community center and in serving on the Economic Development Committee, housing is definitely an issue. And I was just reading a nationwide, it was a presentation last night because I know that there are a lot of people that say, we don't need housing, we don't need more housing. We do need more housing. We need more housing affordable for people that are making not a lot. And the wages have not gone up the same as house prices and rent have. And I know because I have a daughter and 3 grandchildren, and they're in Weston, but it's pretty hard to find something when you have 3 kids for less than, if you're renting, $1,500. That's decent. So it's incredibly expensive. So anyway, we really need very affordable housing. And, I'm very open. I would like to hear what residents of the neighborhood want. So that's my desire as well. And I look forward to this, but, in that, I do, again, these were I don't want to say just college students because they're graduate students and they've been studying this, but they're not proposals. So, but yeah, you all are living there, all of you that are living in the area. Definitely, please do reach out to us, or we can also incorporate that public participation in it. But I'm always more than willing to hear from residents. So, thank you.
So what I'm hearing from the committee is that you're asking staff to put together a public participation plan for the development of 1300 Cleveland in a non-industrial fashion and bring that back to you in your November meeting. I see heads nodding. That's good.
Yes. Did you, Alder Killian?
I don't know if this is relevant. Maybe Eric would know. Eric, I think you said that you told the DNR that the remedial action plan would be to them by January. Is that going to be a problem if we really look at some formal public input processes regarding non-industrial use? That might be kind of tough to get all of that done by January. Is that date flexible?
Yeah, I've talked with Jane at the DNR. She gave us an extension already. And she says that as long as progress is being made, they're open to have
Good.
work
Thank
with us.
you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. So,
Go back to 4.
okay, so we don't need 2 motions or anything.
Nope, we don't need a motion.
Okay, but it's clear. It's clear. So, okay, good. So then back to agenda item number 4, discussion and possible action on the property redevelopment policy, also known as property disposition policy.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. We have had discussions on this at our last 2 meetings. Based on those conversations, made some notes, made some changes to what you see in your packet. If anybody's searching, it is on page 17 of the PDF packet. Alder Killian asked for us to look into language that would require properties bought for redevelopment purposes to come back to the Economic Development Committee before being used for anything else. In my review of that comment and what is really that 3rd paragraph that we have under acquisition currently, is that's very similar language to what we have in our existing policy now. If you look under general notes, the 4th asterisk, which in your packet is going to be page 22 of your packet. The 4th. Sure, Shannon, do you mind going to page 22 of the packet? So if you want to blow that up a little bit, that very bottom asterisk under general notes, I can read it. In the case of a parcel that is deemed better suited to be utilized for public purposes after the acquisition has occurred, the property will be referred to the Infrastructure and Facilities Committee or other committees as appropriate for the ultimate proposed purpose. So as part of that conversation last time, I did provide some alternate language that would require a parcel that was acquired for redevelopment purposes to not only go to the Infrastructure Committee, but also go through the Economic Development Committee as well. So it would require both of those committees if it was to be used for a different purpose.
Comment on that. I believe any property that's purchased for redevelopment is currently supposed to go to economic development, correct?
That's
and
correct.
I think your language says if anyone deems it appropriate, and it could be used for a public utility or a facility, that it could also go to infrastructure. My question is, who's going to deem it appropriate? On part of your proposal, you say that if a property is undevelopable, it will be deemed appropriate by the zoning administrator. You have nothing in here that says who's going to be deeming it appropriate. So if you say, I deem it appropriate, it's going to go to infrastructure. I think we need more specific language there on who's going to do that, Randy.
Yeah, I think it would be the Infrastructure Committee and specifically their chair if they're putting it on the agenda.
So they can say, I think I should take a property from ED and put it on infrastructure?
I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, if the city, it's city-owned property. Sometimes we acquire property, and sometimes after time, we find there's a better use for it that serves the city in a better way. Ultimately, it's the council that makes that decision whether we use it for something or not. But in the case of like what our existing policy allows for is really that to go to Infrastructure Committee, and then it can proceed on to council. By including the Economic Development Committee in that process, it requires at least both of those committees have a say in it prior to going to full council.
Okay, but isn't there a city ordinance that says that when a property is owned or purchased by the city, that it will be given to a specific committee? And I think our ordinance says that if it's for redevelopment, it goes to ED, doesn't it?
That is correct. So
Is this agendized properly if we're changing an ordinance?
we're not changing an ordinance.
So why aren't you?
It's not required. So there's multiple different avenues that you can go down in terms of what the property intended use is. So specifically 3.12.040 has a specific carve out for the Economic Development Committee in terms of if something's being purchased for redevelopment purposes. Everything else goes through the Infrastructure Committee, which I believe it's 312.010.
Okay, it was just my understanding that that the way this was written, it said that if someone deems it appropriate, I didn't know who was deeming it appropriate, and I didn't know that another committee can just say, I think it's more appropriate that this goes to infrastructure, when, isn't there an ordinance that says if it's purchased, it goes to, for redevelopment, it goes to ED, or is there not anything like that?
Yep, correct. That's what I was just referencing. So if it's purchased for redevelopment purposes, it goes to the ED committee and they make those decisions.
So why can it then just be deemed appropriate to go to another committee? I just don't understand that.
Well, in the bigger picture, like I said, it's city-owned property, so although something gets acquired for one reason, there may be, something's changed. The world's always changing. There may be a need for something. So we could look at changing it to Metro Transit, for example. Let's say that we need to make some changes and we've purchased a property for redevelopment at one point, and the council as a whole decides that that's the better use for it. As much as I would love to keep all properties that we purchased originally for redevelopment, I don't think that's the best practice for the city as a whole.
Oh, just because it's an ED property, it feels to me like it shouldn't be the choice of the infrastructure chair, but for example, the chair of ED should have, something to say about that. I mean, what if she doesn't deem it appropriate and it's on her committee?
Well, this new opportunity, and so keep in mind, the way that the existing policy says is that ED doesn't have any say in it. It just goes to infrastructure, moves on. But in this, what I'm proposing is that it would go through both committees, economic development as well as infrastructure.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry.
That's
I was
okay.
just thinking about it all. So anyway, Alder Tierney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I'm looking at this, Randy, at the disposition that is on page 17, from the city ordinance 3.12.040, the Economic Development Committee is the designated representative to negotiate and recommend the sale or lease of city-owned land designated for commercial or residential redevelopment or parcels in industrial parks. Staff have identified 4 types of property that come before the ED committee. Properties not initially required for redevelopment purposes fall under 3.12.030 and the Infrastructure and Facilities Committee. What I'm reading here is that this first sentence says that it's all going to the ED committee. So I guess I'm not understanding why that would change when that is a city ordinance. I guess I'm confused with that.
We're not changing the city ordinance.
Right, but you are with your policy change when you're saying
We're not
that.
changing the city ordinance with the policy change. It's just that there's 2 different avenues for purchase.
But that's not what this says. It gives you one avenue. Because you're saying that if somebody deems, it would go right to infrastructure. That's not what this says. This says all city-owned land designated for commercial or residential redevelopment or parcels in industrial parks. That goes to ED. So tell me what wouldn't go to ED, because this is pretty much covers it all.
So it would be the purchase of fleet facility land. So we're looking at purchasing land for a fleet facility. That's
Okay.
a non-redevelopment, industrial, commercial, so that would be something that would go through infrastructure. Sometimes there's need for different operations, water and sewer, different things like that. That's why that would go through infrastructure. I'll use the example of the parcel that was recently purchased, Floral Avenue, for the fire department. That was a property that was not for redevelopment purposes, so it went through the infrastructure committee.
How can you say that's not being redeveloped? It's going to be redeveloped as a fire station or firehouse.
Yeah, we're looking at, traditional redevelopment, so type of residential, commercial development.
Well, it also says, or parcels in industrial parks. So that's industrial park. I mean, normally if something was going up in the industrial park, you would think infrastructure because it's not commercial, it's not business. But that's in here, so
Yep,
my concern
industrial.
is that it's not going to go the way this disposition says. That somebody's going to say, we have this piece of property here, and we're going to take it away from ED&O because we want to look at it for industrial purposes. And because we've done that. We've looked at things that we were going to purchase for development, but ended up looking at it for industrial too because the need for fleet, for example.
Yes, so I think the big differentiation is this is public service, public facilities. So that's fire, that's public works. Industrial development is something we work on. Industrial park is something that we're actively working on all the time. So redevelopment, we would focus residential, commercial, industrial. Public facilities, public works, fire, police, so.
Mr. Lindman. Are you gonna
I was just
help
going to say, yeah, like, I mean, I think the fire station is a good example, right? That's going to be a public use versus non-public or taxable entity, right? You know, we have the property up that's proposed for solar, right? That would be for infrastructure to take a look at because that's going to be a public use. Eventually, if the city determines to purchase a property for the fleet facility or moving public works, then that would go to infrastructure, not for commercial or otherwise redevelopment. So, yeah.
It wouldn't initially be purchased for redevelopment, and I think that was the issue for me.
Yeah.
You're saying a property initially purchased for redevelopment. You're talking about a property that was initially purchased for public use, Eric, and those are different.
Right.
And I think that's what you've added.
Right.
In the case of a parcel that is deemed better suited to be utilized for public purposes after being acquired for redevelopment, that property will be reviewed by the Economic Development Committee in addition to INF. So he added that in. So then it's covered. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Did
I would make a motion to accept the submitted changes to the policy.
Thank you, Director Lindman, by the way. So motion by Alder Neal to accept the changes. Do we have a second? Oh, did you want to say something?
A second.
Alder Hinkie, second by Alder Hinkie.
And then I just got a couple comments.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. Just looking, I always think of the delineating line as if it's taxable or not. I think if the plan is that the property will be if the plan is to have it a taxable property, then I think it comes through economic development, where if it's going to be a public use and like non-taxable building, then it would go through infrastructure. That's just in my head where I make the delineation. We also, just being the chair of infrastructure for, this one term, we get land negotiations and deals, quite often. Any road construction, we have easements going around. There's purchases sometimes involved with there. So I've seen just little parcels most of the time come through there, and I almost make the argument that with issues we've ran into with utilities, maybe they should all come through infrastructure and facility, and maybe I'll go through both of them. But I think we've handled that in a different way where we're going to be more diligent in making sure our utilities are covered even with developable properties. So that's why I'll support this and vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Hinkie. Any other questions?
Just one curveball I'll throw back at Alder Hinkie with his analogy of taxable is that there's also situations, I'll use community partner campus as an example. That's always something that I can see as a redevelopment project where it's a nonprofit, not going to necessarily be generating taxes, but something that would be have value and be coming through our process as well. So there's always something.
Thank you. Alder Kelly, did you have something?
Before we vote, do we have a second on Alder Neal's motion?
Yep, Alder Hinkie seconded it.
Okay, yeah, I did want to ask Randy one more question. At our last meeting regarding this proposal, Randy, there was significant discussion about a site where we could list all city properties so that residents would be aware that they could go to one site. And I know in your information, you said you're still working on that. Before this is accepted, isn't that something that should be determined? Because I know some of the different subdivisions in this particular proposal say that, in fact, most of them say that they'll go to the city website and have signs, and some will be with tours. I know it was recommended that you talk to Realtor.com. Did you do that?
Certainly did. I kind of got, once we got off, I have about 4 talking points on this, and we stopped after we got through one. So just to follow through on that, I did speak to Realtor.com, inquire about ways we can list properties on their platform. I was told I needed to work through my local MLS, was provided contact for the Central Wisconsin Board of Realtors. We've been in conversations with them about finding ways to get access, I'll say, to their system. We're still looking at that and finding ways. There may be opportunities, but would have some cost in terms of membership as well as a monthly fee in the $2,000 to $4,000 range. That's something we're still looking at. I would say that there's always things that we're going to be looking at. We've talked about doing social media. The policy is kind of, this is absolutely what we're going to do. If I can find ways that we're going to do that, we're going to bring that back for future discussion. But that would be in addition to the requirements contained within your policy. Also been talk with the mayor about using our city social media, trying to promote that in different ways. There's always opportunities to do that, and I think we just need to be resourceful and trying to always be creative with the way that we're getting that information out.
Well, I'm glad you're going to be pursuing that, because I know when it said it would be on the city website and for some properties on the GIS map. Before I was even on this committee, I didn't know what the GIS map was, and I still have never gone to a GIS map. So if there's a neighbor who sees a property next door to them and they'd like to buy it, I don't think they're going to know to go to the GIS map. So having that one central place for all properties that are for sale, I think would be a critical thing for our residents. It would really be helpful. Thank you.
And I'll just add in my second and third points while I'm on it now. We did add in that 30-day time period after posting before applications review. Thank you for catching that.
Thank you.
We also added the assessor will provide a value for each property to be sold. So when I bring something forward to you, regardless of what price is being offered, we'll have the assessor provide us with the value of the property just so you can make a more informed decision on your disposition.
Those are very positive additions. Thank you, Randy.
Welcome.
Any other questions, comments? So we have a motion and a second. Ready to vote? Okay, so all in favor of these revisions or additions to the policy, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. All right. Just make my agenda. Thank you. So now we are at agenda number 5, item number 5, discussion and possible action on approving the city's next poet laureate.
And you may be wondering why we have a conversation about the city's next poet laureate on the Economic Development Committee agenda. And I'll answer that by telling you the authorizing resolution for the Arts Commission, the standing committee that the Arts Commission comes to is your Economic Development Committee. So they've been going through this process of searching for our next poet laureate. It comes through the standing committee, which is the Economic Development Committee, to make a recommendation on to council. With that being said, I'm going to bring up Brad Lenz, city planner, who's been doing the heavy lifting, sharpening his pencil and working on his, I can't even make a good poetry joke at this point, but
it's a little too late in the evening for that, I think. So thanks, Randy, for that. I guess the heavy lifting really was done by our Arts Commission and our subcommittee of the Arts Commission. In that resolution that Randy referenced from 2020, it outlines the process for selecting the poet laureate, and actually there's criteria in there that the subcommittee looked at. The subcommittee is a panel of experts. We have a professor of creative writing at UWSP. The city's current poet laureate was on that panel, as well as a volunteer member of our Arts Commission who is a professional artist. So they reviewed the applications against the criteria that are in the original in the original resolution, also in the RFP that went out to find the poet laureate. And the subcommittee recommended unanimously my cow for the poet laureate and Barry Liss as the alternate poet laureate. Again, the resolution says that the council will nominate a poet and an alternate. So those are the two names that they're recommending. The subcommittee recommended to the Arts Commission, both unanimous, that those two be the official poet and alternate for the next term that starts as soon as this is approved at council. So happy to entertain any questions.
Sorry, Alder Neal, did you have a question or did you?
No, I would make a motion. I appreciate the interest brought forth by the two candidates, and my motion is to approve them.
Okay, so motion by Alder Neal, second by Alder Tierney. Any questions? Alder Henke?
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the outgoing poet laureate for all of their work and over the last years. So that's all I have. Thank you.
As well. Thank you. Anything else? Anyone? Okay, so all in favor then of approving this?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Okay, so that passes unanimously. So then that brings us to agenda item number 8, update on Thomas Street infill project. Director Fiber.
Thank you. So we didn't have an update on infill on Thomas Street at our last meeting, so apologize on that. But there has been some progress out there, even though we are at this point 2 years into our process of working with the DNR on that WHAM grant. In August 18th and 19th, specifically, they did do some test wells, were drilled out on those properties. Did talk with Tom at the DNR today. The test results are in the lab. He's expecting that they'll have a draft report back to us. He's hoping by the end of the month. So hopefully in November, we'll have a copy of that and can continue to move that forward as slowly and painfully as that process has been. But I'm happy to see there is progress and that the test wells were drilled.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, anything else? All right, so then that takes us to agenda item 9, which is adjournment.
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, motion by Alder Henke, second by Alder Killian. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much, and for all of you who attended, thank you again.